So I think we can get started. So welcome everybody to our Nomad Talk. Just a quick FYI before we get started. We take questions throughout the conversation. It's a very informal, fun conversation. So you guys can definitely send in your questions in the chat box and we'll take them as we go along in the conversation, okay? So don't be shy, guys. Send your questions. We love it when you interact and let us know what you want to hear. All right, so let's get started. So I would like to welcome Ricardo Wolff, who is here. Welcome, and thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Paula. Thanks for the invite. Just a question: is everyone has their camera off, or is just you that I see?
Yeah, everybody has their cameras off and their audios off. Yeah.
Okay.
Everybody has it off.
Okay.
Yeah, we tried to do that to ensure like the best possible connection to here.
Okay.
To keep
no, I thought it was a bug, but as long as there's people behind the not bots, it's all right.
Yeah, no, everybody's here. Everybody's going to send in questions. It's going to be great.
Cool.
So thank you so much for being here. It's such a pleasure to talk to you. I'm going to read a quick bio on Ricardo, just because, you know, then you can introduce yourself the way you prefer, but just so we cover the basics and then you don't have to read that, you know, basic bio that I'm sure you're tired of going over. So we're so excited to talk to you today and see your journey on how you went from being a copywriter at Miami Ad School to an ECD and executive creative director at Innocean Berlin. So Ricardo studied at MAD São Paulo and started his career in Germany in 2007 as a copywriter. He's worked at DDB Berlin, Almap BBDO, BBDO Group Germany as a creative director, and then DDB Berlin as a global creative director for Volkswagen International before his current position. He's also won over 400 awards, Cannes Lion, D&AD, One Show pencils, and the most notable win, I suppose, for you in the recent years is that you won the only titanium in Germany, the first and only titanium in 2019 with Uncensored Playlist for Reporters Without Borders. So it's a very impressive bio. It's hard. I don't even know where to start. So let's start with you introducing yourself, if there's anything else you want to say, and maybe showing some of your work so that we can get to know you a little bit better.
Cool. Yeah, no, thanks. Thanks, Paula and everyone else who's here. For me, it's always a pleasure to come back home, let's put it this way, to talk to my med school students. All I can say is that I was there. I was in your shoes maybe some 15 years ago. So perhaps today I can share a bit of my, my experience in the, from the point that you are to the point that I got. It's just I arrived earlier in the party. That's all. So you're all gonna get where you're supposed to go. But it's always helpful to be here and or chat openly. So it's my pleasure.
Amazing. So can you get us started by showing maybe something that really is sort of maybe is important for you in your career, one of your projects that marked your career in a way, and tell us the story behind it or curiosities behind it?
Yeah, sure. Okay. I put together like 5, maybe 6 pieces of work today to show. It's not my intention to show my portfolio, nothing like that. Even because I think most of the stuff that I'll put in front of you today is not even on my link or anything like that. But I think they were important.
It's not on your portfolio anymore?
No, but they were very meaningful at a certain point. You and I, Paula, we had a quick chat before this chat and maybe going through some of the questions. I said, well, maybe that work is cool to show for that specific period, that one for that one. So I wanted to start with one piece, and that was like the first campaign I actually did when I joined DDB Berlin. So I did, my last quarter, I did my med school in São Paulo, and then my last quarter was in Format in Hamburg. And after that, I was hired at DDB Berlin. And back then we had, many, very cool accounts that were international, Ikea and Volkswagen. And starting as a junior, you had obviously not the big briefs in your desk. We had to do like a print ad for surf and sailing magazine, something like it would be half of a page. And we had to advertise the car that appealed to that certain audience that, always look for more adventurous sort of life. And it was the Cross Polo. So my partner, and still partner today, Gabriel Matar, we came up with a concept that I think embodies somehow the trajectory of a Portuguese-speaking team going to Germany and having to work in English. We thought, that was my first question to my CCO. I was like, how am I going to survive here? Why did you hire me? And he said, look, I saw your book and I understand that you can write in English and you can think globally. So that's the kind of the purest way of thinking, that you're not bound to a specific word or to a wordplay or to a local gag, that you can think concepts.
Right.
So,
it's a universality. Creativity can be super universal.
And back then we were the first non-Germans working at DDB Berlin. So we're like, okay, we need to find something that the Germans would understand, and it was a magazine in Germany. So we came up with a concept that was translatable, obviously later to German, which was an off-road car, not necessarily for off-road people, which is a concept that I still love, because whenever I go to São Paulo and I see Sportages and all this Jeep and SUVs, they're everywhere. But I bet 95% of these people never drive outside off-road. Of the asphalt.
No.
So for me, it's the piece that it was very true back then. It's still very true today. And it reminds me of a time that we could still make fun of people without being, slightly making fun of people without being crucified. And back in a time when Volkswagen was a very people-oriented brand. But the fact is, we did one print ad, but the client liked it so much, and the agency also saw this as an opportunity to invest on the campaign, that we made a print ad that became 3 print ads, and then we also shot like 4 films out of that. And for me, it's also a symbol. It's kind of a tip for everyone here. When there's a good idea on the table, things happen. Even if it's like a small radio that it can become a film later, so every job is an opportunity to make something, bigger happen.
Wow.
So I will share the ad, and that's the ad we did. So it's basically this dude cleaning the lake before jumping in. And then we did, and they were like, "Oh, that's great. Let's go. Well, let's invest in this campaign, both the client and the agency." And then we did this film, which I love. Paula, just please let me know if the sound is playing.
Yeah, I think you have to make it full screen first. You press on the green.
Yeah.
Ya terminó, pensando en ti, mi amor.
So we made like 4 films afterwards, but the cool thing was it was kind of a reassuring feeling that, okay, you can take a small thing, you can still do some jokes, get paid for it, and things happen. So after that, I think we got more chances at the agency and things went smoother.
Yeah, no, that was really funny. I was laughing a lot at the woman's expression as the guy's trying to light up the log.
Yeah,
That was really
he
funny.
thinks like, now I get it, you know? Like,
Yeah,
I'm just
yeah.
gonna turn it higher.
So let's, since the main theme of our conversation tonight is how to get a job as a creative in Berlin, I'm curious to know what drew you to Berlin in the first place. Was it, you know, chance? There was that opportunity of an internship and then you just ended up there? Did you have sort of a conscious plan of building your career in Germany?
No, it's a question that for me, the answer is a bit bigger than advertising. Like I was 22, 23 back then. And I wanted to get out of São Paulo, like it's a city I was born and raised, and I just wanted to, there was something pushing me to see the world and stuff. So then with that pressure, you start finding your idols and start finding the reasons to do that. And like when I was 14, I lost one grandfather, which I didn't have much relationship with, or much of a connection. And when I was 22, I get to see sort of like a testimonial that he left behind. And he was a Holocaust survivor. He was born in Berlin, 1924. And like during this testimonial, you get to see how sort of a crazy adventure he was thrown in. He's lost his parents, he survived. It's very much the pianist, you know, sort of,
The
you know,
movie,
always,
yeah.
so you're
And even then living
it.
in Brazil too, you know, imagine living in Germany your whole life and then moving to Brazil and starting over. And
yeah, so he he survived the war. He was 15 when the war started. He survived the war and arrived in Brazil in 46 when he was 22. And when I read that, like the testimonial, I kind of found a hero within my own family. And I had sort of a crazy vision. Say, what if I do the opposite? What if I throw myself in Germany, which is a country that I've never stepped in? I've been to Europe once doing backpacking, you know, and you never actually see anything, but I never been to Germany. So I thought, what if I happen to get an internship? Why don't I throw an internship in there, but try to do the opposite and go to a country which is unknown to me, to a language that I don't know, where I have no friends, where I basically have to start from scratch. But I had sort of a mantra that guided me the whole way, which is, or still is actually, there's nothing that will happen to me that would ever get close to what happened to him. And that's what kept me sort of like, that was kind of a North Star all the way. And then getting the internship was sort of like, okay, it's a very good agency. Informat still is a very good agency. And yeah, so I combined kind of a life vision with the work, and the work would be almost like an anchor that I could drop in Europe to then experience, you know, life outside of Brazil, which for me, when you go into a quarter away or a nomad experience, is really the key factor to live a different culture, you know. So
100%. Yeah, 100%. So what were those first moments like then? Because I think for a lot of students and for a lot of creatives who want to move abroad, sometimes that first step can feel like the hardest to get to. Like, oh my God, I'm going to start on the first day. Can you like briefly describe those first few moments, if there were any moments of shock or, oh my God? And
no, but that's why I mentioned, like, it's a very personal story, but I wanted to bring, because for me, it's what defined my mantra in that sense. So even if I was shit scared on my first day, there's always that cliche sentence that says it's only advertising, you know. But if I mess,
have fun, yeah,
it's like no one's gonna die, you know. And also, yeah, I was like, man, it's okay. But the thing is, after this internship was really, I knew that I had 3 months to prove myself, because I wanted to stay in Europe. Like I applied for my last quarter, but I wanted to stay. Reason why I bought like a 6 months ticket to say, after it's done, I'm going to look for a job and I'm going to find it. And I found a very good job. That's when the pressure really started. Like these 3 months, I worked my ass off. I was building in parallel to my internship, I was building a portfolio with this high school friend who is still my partner today. And the agreement was, I'm going first. I'll try to do my best in the internship, but let's keep ping-ponging. And if I do the right interviews, I'll try to get you over. And that's what happened at DDB. At DDB, we were hired by Amir Kassai, who was like the global, soon to be the global CCO at DDB, but he put us in a position where we basically, that's when the pressure kicked in, because he put us against the shop window basically and said, now you have no excuses. You either are you either is creative or you're not, you know. But there's like this other saying which I believe a lot. I don't know where I saw, if it's like in some Zen Buddhist cheap philosophy guidebook, but it basically says you're never facing a challenge you're not ready for, and if you fail, it's because you are still not ready, you know. So when this guy hired us, I thought, well, maybe he saw something in us, and now we just need to perform. And when you focus and you put your head down and you focus on the brief and you focus on the opportunities, you just basically focus and work, things happen. So that was my little recipe.
Yeah. So now let's talk about the reverse then, because then you started your career in Germany, but then you moved to Brazil. So, and it's funny because, like we say, a lot of people dream about the opposite, you know what I mean? So you started your career there, but then you came back. And I know you wanted to show a piece of work that sort of symbolizes that move back and any adjustments that you had to make in order to adapt to the market here. So can you tell us about that transition?
Yeah. First, I want to say one thing. I was hired by Almap BBDO at the time. This is 2010. And I left Brazil in late 2006. I'm pretty sure that if it wouldn't be for this experience abroad, I'll never be able to reach Almap, which at that time was like like an Olympus for creatives.
In advertising, yeah.
Yeah, so I think that foreign experience of working in another language and being exposed to other cultures helped me a lot. It was a big shortcut. I'm not getting paid to say that to all of you, but in my case, it was true. So going back from Berlin directly to Roque Petroni Jr., next to the Morumbi Mall in São Paulo. So I basically almost moved inside Almap because it was a lot of work, and I had to survive a creative department which was full of titans. Really, it was really first day was really tough. I almost went home. It's like, okay, I'm giving up. You know, there was very competitive, a lot of big names, but I didn't necessarily need to adjust a lot because the agency was run by Marcelo Serpa, or the creative department. And he's somehow half German, half Brazilian mindset. So it's not like I was feeling completely an outsider. Mm-hmm. But for me, the cool thing was it's the first time that I was creating for my own culture or the culture I grew up in, you know, and the first time that I would do something that I could actually turn on the TV next to my parents and watch it, you know. And that's why I wanted to show like a piece, and this is a true story. So my first campaign for Almap, also the reason I didn't have to adjust much is one of the main clients from Almap was Volkswagen too. So, you know, I just stopped creating and the whole strategy and the approach on talking about people and cars was very close worldwide. So my first campaign was at Almap was for Volkswagen. And it was for Volkswagen services, basically saying, don't take your car to, to your neighborhood friend, mechanic, take it to a Volkswagen certified dealership. It might be a bit more expensive. Not that we had to say this, but everyone knows it, The official one might be a bit, but it makes a whole difference, So I made this campaign, and at that time I started dating this lady in Brazil. And so I did the TV spots from the main concept. And the concept was, no one knows you like your mom. No one knows your Volkswagen like Volkswagen. And from that concept, so you see, it's a bit like an off-road car, not necessary for off-road people. Is a thought, is a copywriter's dream, right? That you have a thought, and then you can do whatever. You can do print, radio, TV. At the time, that was like our boundaries. And then I went for lunch to meet the father of my girlfriend, and he actually said, "Oh, you do advertising?" Well, the other day I was in traffic and I heard this radio spot. And then he told me back the radio spot that I created. And I'm looking at my girlfriend's like, "Did you tell him this?" She's like, "No." And that for me was like the coolest, I want to say like recognition, but it was, okay, it's cool to do stuff for your own people, like advertising that
and also a recognition that's so spontaneous. He's not in advertising, so it's exactly. Actually someone that you created the ad for who is connecting to that.
I'll play the film, and it's in Portuguese, but it has Spanish subtitles, because we sent it to, I think it was the Wave Festival or FIAP. And yeah, just so. Is it full screen?
Not yet.
Okay, let me try to do it again.
Press the green.
Okay. Now?
Decoração. No.
Mega.
Okay, let's go.
No, yes. Well, yes, it is. Sorry.
Okay.
Now it is.
Decoração.
Não, mãe, mega produção.
Não, e o vestido dela era incrível.
Não só o vestido.
Foi, Rafa. Rafa. Alguém me ajuda, por favor. Rafael. Já chega.
And I'll play the spot. I'm super proud of this spot. It's the one that got my, father-in-law approval for not being a doctor, But I'll play. This one is in Portuguese, but I'll translate later. Let's go.
Alô, dona Paula? Aqui é do colégio do Fábio, seu filho.
Aconteceu alguma coisa?
Olha, o Fábio não tá bem. Tá pálido, tossindo muito. De vez em quando dá umas tremedeiras. Eu acho melhor levar ele pro hospital, viu?
Ele tá por aí? Posso falar com ele?
Alô, mãe?
Fábio, você vai fazer a prova, sim, senhor.
Mas mãe!
Mas mãe nada. Ninguém mandou não estudar.
Ninguém conhece você como a sua mãe. Ninguém conhece seu Volkswagen como a Volkswagen. Primeira revisão para toda a linha nacional por R$ 4,42. Só na rede Volkswagen. Faça revisões em seu veículo regularmente.
So the funny thing is, like Paula, I actually named the girl in the spot after my girlfriend. Fabio is my brother. So like I will never get to do that stuff in Germany, But basically
that was one amazing advantage of working in Brazil.
Exactly. But yeah, the story is like you have the principal of the school calling this guy's mother and saying like he's not feeling well, he's coughing, he's shaking, and she's like, okay, put him on the phone. And then he's like, she's like, man, I told you to study. Now you need to do the test, So that was it. And yeah, that was a cool landing in Brazil.
Yeah, and it's cool that you mentioned the part about copyright. Actually, before that question, I'm just going to say, because some people came in after I said this. Mm-hmm. Guys, if you want to ask any questions to Ricardo, we're going to be taking it throughout the conversation. You don't need to wait until the end. So just feel free to put it in the chat, okay? Because I think when I said that there were about 30 people and now we have 70. So yeah, okay, awesome. So going back to what you were saying about, it's cool that you mentioned copywriting, because that was actually one of my questions. Because of course now you're an executive creative director. So I wanted to circle back a little bit and talk about copywriting. So are there any tips that you have or some things that you learned in copywriting? Because I thought it was very interesting when you talked about these ads that you create being thoughts, they're thoughts, and that it just grows into something bigger. So any advice or observations about how to perfect your craft as a copywriter?
I think you need to get a couple of books. I think there's two sort of people also as students. They're the ad nerds and the people who think like, okay, I don't need to study what's been done, and it's fine. And there's also a lot of ad professionals that say, oh, you shouldn't study advertising because then you're going to be copying, chasing your own tail. I think it's bullshit. I think you should know every single ad, and you should know things outside of advertising even more than the ads. I'm still part of the ad nerds. I stumbled in advertising when I was in marketing school, ASPM, and I didn't know what I was doing there. So I went to the library. I was like, okay, what am I studying? And then I found an annual from Brazilian Creative Club. And then suddenly it was like light shining and filling the room. I was like, fuck, I need to do things like this. And there were headlines from Eugenio Morales, headlines from Fabio Fernandes, from Nizam Guanais. What I started to do in my first internship is to actually type down all the headlines from all the annuals in chronological order. And then I made a little Bible for myself. And then
so you were definitely in the nerd category then.
Super nerd. And then I started to get I did an internship in W Brasil, which was like better than most people, super cool agency at the time. And they had like an immense library of annuals. So in lunchtime, I would go to the copy machine and just copy the cool ads that I put Post-its in. And I was forming my favorite, big favorite folder. But what that does to you, besides consuming a lot of ads, is to passively create your own criteria, and that comes in handy when you become a creative director, but also when you are creative. It adds to your baggage in that sense. And so back to your question, my advice is like read a lot outside of advertising, because you don't write what you don't read as well. You learn from big masters, literary masters, but no advertising as well, because sometimes you mix two formulas of headlines and suddenly you have like a super cool concept. So for me, the copy book from D&AD is a must. All the books from Dave Trott, so The Creative Mischief or 1 + 1 = 3. They're super nicely written, but there's a lot of strategic thinking also in there, which is essential for copywriters. It's not just about like finding the formula. Sometimes a great ad is just a thought. It's not perfectly written, but it's just a universal truth. And to get there, you need to think. So, yeah.
Amazing. So after this experience in Brazil, how and why did you, go back to Germany, and how did you make that happen? What was that like?
Okay. I could never forget Berlin. I don't know. Like every other night when I was living in São Paulo, I was thinking about Berlin again. Like I I don't know, it's a city that hit. I never planned to live in Berlin. I first moved to Hamburg, and then things happened that I found a work here, but it's a city where I kind of discovered my late adolescence. I was 23 when I arrived here, and it's a city that is, I heard people in Hamburg say, "Oh, you're gonna look for work in Berlin. It's huge. It's huge. You're gonna get lost there." Like, fuck, I imagined this humongous city, but I didn't know that I came from São Paulo. So when I arrived in Berlin,
I was just thinking that. I was like, nah.
Yeah, so Berlin is like a neighborhood from São Paulo, and it's flat, and it's pretty quiet. Like, there's less people living here today than in 1939. It's pretty cheap. It's pretty cultural. And I actually stepped foot here without reading a single guidebook or any documentary, nothing. And then suddenly, I got this cool job. I got enough money to travel, my free time in Eastern Europe, which for me was a completely different world. And then suddenly I fell in love with the city, but then a super cool offer to work with this hero in Brazil came along. And I don't know, I felt that after 3 years in São Paulo, I had squeezed what I could from this opportunity. I just wanted to actually come back. Every single year I came back here for holidays, and I was almost like crying, holding in the airport, like, I belong here. So I got this offer so I started talking to old contacts that I had from this previous time here. And one of them had become the CCO from BBDO Berlin, and they were doing a very decent job in many accounts, one of them being Smart, the small car. And he said, why don't you come over and be the creative director, since you had such a big experience already with Volkswagen and Audi and whatnot. And boom, next month I was back.
Just like that. Wow.
Yeah. Well, there was a lot
crazy.
There was a lot of drama in the family.
So the drama was more personal than professional.
I was, to be honest, to leave at that time, Almap BBDO, to go to BBDO Berlin was not the best professional trade, I would say. But I was stepping up in the ladder, like I was becoming a creative director for a very good car account. So I thought it was a good challenge. But as for just like the first time, I was caring more about the life experience that I wanted and what you ultimately bring to work than to be unhappy outside of the work walls and try to create magic without being a bit dead inside, Mm-hmm. I don't know. Back then I had this very advertising quote that I kind of explained life to me, which was, what was it? In the advertising of life. No, fuck, I forgot. I'll come back to it later.
Yeah, good. Perfect. Okay. So we have a few questions now from people who are here. So okay. Bruno wants to know, in your time, did you study more words and ideas or visual and design things? I mean, I'm going to assume it's more words and ideas, but
I studied both, to be honest. Like I studied both, but as I'm talking about a time when I was in your shoes as student or intern or junior. It was a very different landscape of ideas that we could do. We were basically fighting for print and film. That was it. I'm talking about 15 years ago. Khan had 4 categories: out of home, print, radio, and cinema. As a junior, it was extremely difficult to produce a film. So you would be in this gigantic vestibular of print, and as a copywriter, there was only like the dream agency for a copywriter to work for was Fallon, because all you had to do is like a great concept or a great headline, and then an art director would find, the best way to lay out this. So I automatically had to pay more attention to words than just doing, Lutz's archives ads, because that also doesn't get you the daily stuff done,
Mm-hmm. Cool. Stephanie wants to know what she says is, some people tell me to email all the companies, and that maybe that's a way to get a job in the world of creativity and advertising. In your opinion, what would you suggest? So I guess, is that advice correct, to email?
Okay, it's a very, when we were talking, Paula, you mentioned like try to think of concrete tips to bring, and this for me is one of the biggest ones. It is a people's business, many businesses are people's business, but in advertising, it's very rare that a person starts and ends his or her career in one company. You need to think of the face behind the logo of the company, or the face behind the letters of ECD or CD. We're all creatives, we're all insecure. It's very few people who say I create for fun and I don't have problems with it. Marcelo Serpa is one of them. He's like, I don't have problems creating. And I'm like, fuck, that can't be the same profession, Like all the people I know, they suffer, they bite their nails. So we people who are longer in the business, we're people, and we were in your shoes too. We were insecure. We were fighting to have our first award. We're fighting to have our spotlight. So my approach is, or my tip is, don't write those big, long mails with your URL portfolio in the end. This is just a time-consuming email that I open, or anyone else opens, and think like, there goes 10 minutes of my day. I have so much to do. But if there's a one-liner or a two-liner saying, I'll use myself as the example here because I'm talking. Ricardo, I'm going to be in Berlin in the week, blah, 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 blah. I know you're a busy guy, but I know that the agencies in Hackeschermarkt, there's cafes around. Can we go for a coffee for 10 minutes? You didn't talk about who you are, or your link, the link to your portfolio, nothing. But that for me is a personal message, and I'm like, wow, that person took time to know who I am, where the agency is, and that there's cafes around, and then you offer me kind of like a break from my own life.
Yeah.
But I don't know.
I remember, it's funny that you mentioned that, because I remember now a headhunter telling me once something similar, where she said, try to research a bit about the person's personality. So for example, in your LinkedIn, it says you love Gilberto Gil and you love Apocalypse Now. So it's like, hey, I love this movie. Of course, you're not going to be fake about it and lie, but hey, I actually love this movie too.
But like, if you crack a joke about napalm in the morning, I don't know.
Exactly. Make something up about something that interests you as well.
The point is, yes, it takes time maybe to stalk the person a bit. But
nowadays it doesn't anymore. It's so easy with Instagram and LinkedIn. It's so easy.
Yes, but the odds that you get a yes are way higher. Because it's personal. So that's what I was saying, like, we are people behind the titles and the agency name. So find a person. And also, if you go with like a machine gun and send to everyone, what if a shitty agency with a shitty creative director answers, are you going to get this job? So do a list of the people you want to work for. Rule number one in advertising, always work for someone that is better than you, or someone that you admire. So do a little war plan, or at least that's what I did when I was in Infomat, and I knew that my time was running out. I shot a lot of mails to basically every agency in Berlin, and I changed the name here and there. And there were agencies where 3 people from different departments answered me, And then suddenly there was a HR problem because the HR lady was like, okay, you're talking to the CCO, but to the art director in the same day. So, but I was like, okay, that's at least a good problem. But I was desperate, I had to talk to people. But, it's just way more human and personal. So find a person you want to work for, do a little bit of research on the sort of humor. This is like emotion. Is it more tech-driven creative, or is it more of a headline or concept person? And then snap, because I guarantee we don't get many of these personalized approaches, and that makes a difference.
Great. Amazing. So thinking about sort of all your experience, what do you think that it takes to succeed in Berlin?
Like, as I said, when I arrived here, 2006, I was like, I had like this immense machete cutting, I think I was one of the first non-German creatives or international, and now has changed a lot. There's, for very good reasons, Latin Americans, Brazilians, Argentinians, I don't know what else. I saw Peru, Mexico. Like, we come, even though we're Latin Americans, I like to call us like the Swiss knife of advertising. We are brewed in a competition atmosphere. We know or at least I like to think that young people still study a lot. And that opens doors here, because at least in Germany, advertising is seen as a mediocre profession.
Oh, wow. That's interesting.
Like, okay, maybe it's a tough adjective, but if being an advertiser in Brazil puts you in this glamour here of Washington Oliveto, of like, giving interviews to, Playboy back in the day, stuff like that. You don't do that in Germany. You are a communicator of services. And that puts you like in the hate list along with accountants, on tax people, Obviously, there's some exceptions, people who are, sort of trendy, but it's even though you produce very well, you have like super good production companies and tech partners and whatnot and directors. It's still a very modest profession. When you go inside the walls of the agency, there's a lot of people who just happen to be there because they are Germans and they like communication and they are there. And it's not like us Latins who are fucking passionate, hot-blooded, holding the knife with their teeth, studying and bloody eyes and and so no wonder you see many Brazilians representing Germany at the Young Lions competition, because they come here and they put 10 ideas on the server, and then so to your question,
to learn how to value that, learning how to value that, right? Like, not seeing maybe being Latin American as a weakness, but as a strength.
Is a strength. You're swimming faster, and also if you come here, you are away, and it happens to Innocean Berlin. We are the most international agency in Berlin, which happens to be the most international city in Germany, and we suffer sometimes because we have so many international people. At some point, they go back to their homeland. Like it's normal. People sometimes get homesick, but I hate this analogy, but it's true. It's like you're being diagnosed and you have 2 years to live. You're just gonna get shit done. You want to live your life. You want to do all the stuff that you never thought you would, because I have 2 years to live, And the same thing when you're working abroad. It's very rare that people come to Berlin and say, "Oh, I see myself getting old here." No, you have like you have a due date. and you want to make the best out of this opportunity. So when you come with this sort of like notion of mortality and your hot-blooded Latin passion, you put these two things together, you will get the chances. You will produce more than the locals, you know.
Mm-hmm. Great. Regina wants to know how important it is to have an advanced level of German.
Not at all. I mean, not in my case. Even though being a copywriter, I was offered this job again to think universally. I think the question is more like, can you make yourself understood in English? Can you write? You don't need to be, you know, Shakespeare, but can you get the ideas that are in your head, you know, translated in a piece of paper that you won't be able to present, someone else will read and say, oh, great, I love that thing, or the thought. That is important. Unless you want to go to a small agency in Düsseldorf and just do German markets, then German is necessary.
Okay.
But yeah.
Cool. So we have someone who raised their hand, Majo. I don't know if I'm saying your name right, so sorry if I'm butchering the pronunciation.
Mayo.
Did you, Mayo? Maybe, yeah, maybe. Did you want to ask a question on camera or something? Just let me know in the chat, okay? Because I saw that you raised your hand. We have one more question here from someone, and we'll wait for the person to say something. So Montserrat wants to know, what recommendation or advice would you give us to have a good portfolio?
There's one word for me that is sacred, which is consistency. You know, you can have 4 pieces and they are in a good level, or they show who you are or what you're capable of, and you don't need to have 15 that go from here to there, you know. For writers, obviously you need to prove that you can write. You know, don't be afraid of putting a headline campaign for a car, because how, you know, if you do that and if you have great headlines for a sports car, you're suddenly swimming with Porsche tradition or with Volkswagen tradition of headlines. So if you have a long copy that is well written, you're like, you jump, at least in my criteria, you jump a lot of positions, because not many of you will enter an agency and have the big briefs, the titanium briefs, you know, you probably need to fix a radio campaign in the beginning. And if you don't know how to write, or if you only know how to do NGO campaigns that save, you know, kids with cancer, you're not going to survive. You might survive in the wrong agency, but you're not going to survive in an agency that, you know, needs to solve real clients' problems, you know.
Mm-hmm. We have another question here. What do you think are the best characteristics or traits in German advertising?
It's tough. It's not you know, it's not a trailblazing country when it comes to advertising. I don't think you can put Germany in the levels of, you know, UK, America, Australia, or even New Zealand sometimes. But I think when Germans find a way to mix technology with a human insight, it's game, you know. I think definitely not humor, but I think ideas with tech, you know, big ideas that wouldn't be possible without technology. I think that's the core. Except for one brand that is called Hornbach, which is kind of a DIY store, the store that you like, you know, Leroy Merlin sort of store. That the work that they've done for many years, not recently, but for many years, is pretty cool. Like, they embrace the creative side of building stuff, and it's a rare case of like every year a good campaign with a solid concept that is well executed, and it was always done by the same agency, which is called Heimat, which translates to like homeland in German. Yeah.
Cool. So I don't know if you want to show your work that won the first and only titanium in Germany now.
Yeah, sure.
That could be a cool moment. It was for Reporters Without Borders. And then we can, I think it's also a good segue for us to talk a little bit about awards as well.
Yeah, cool. Because besides that one, that's the only campaign I think I haven't shown. There's another one later when you were talking about maybe I show that one now, because there was one question you mentioned about coming back to Germany and what is the difference between Brazil and blah, blah, blah. And we were talking now about the specificities of German advertising. One of them is not humor. And when I was working at BBDO Berlin, I created a spot for Smart, which back then my CCO came to me and said, he tapped me on the shoulder and said, "Congrats, you've done something that no one else could do here," which is it wouldn't be like this, but said, "You've done something that's really hard to do in Germany, which is a funny spot." Mm-hmm. And it was named like the spot of the year. It was the only film Lion winner from Germany at that year, and it's something I'm proud of, because I kind of brought the Brazilianness to Germany, and it shined through.
You hacked the system.
I hacked the system from the inside. Yeah, exactly. So it's this one.
Space is a dance floor. It's getting bigger, 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 bigger. The spotlight's on us.
Smart.
So, okay, that was humor. The last question is like, when German advertising succeeds, and my answer was when you find a human truth, but you mix it with technology. And I think this titanium idea is a good example of that. It falls into the category of like hacking the system or finding a loophole into a technology and then putting something extremely human in it. So this mixture of technology and guerrilla and a human inside. So that is like the last campaign I've done at DDB before joining Innocean. Oops, just a second. Let me open here. So let's go.
You are fake news. Go ahead.
Democracy dies in darkness.
Die meisten inhaftierten Journalisten weltweit.
My name is Changping.
My name is Galima Bukharbaeva. I'm a journalist from Uzbekistan.
People struggling in anger. These are the Hunger Games.
Viajar para esses países e poder gravar de fato com músicos locais fez com que a gente criasse algo verdadeiro, e eu acho que assim a gente consegue de fato tocar as pessoas.
E para a gente realizar isso da melhor forma, foi muito importante a gente conseguir se manter muito fiel ao que os artigos diziam.
Speech is freedom itself. It's part of the freedom.
finally understand that censorship makes no sense. Absolutely.
I hope this uncensored playlist would reach many people around the world.
When I was young, I dreamed to be a songwriter.
Yeah.
Amazing. That's on your portfolio. I saw
That
it
is.
there. Well, let's talk a little bit about awards then, since, you know, we just saw this amazing award-winning campaign. Tell me about sort of how important were awards in your career? Did it help you? Because I know that for a lot of students or potential students who are here, awards, you know, are still sort of a part of the process of trying to get better jobs and trying to get promotions, and awards really play a part. So any thoughts on awards?
Yeah, it's a 1-hour discussion, awards.
Yeah. Unfortunately, we don't have.
Okay, but I think, you know, there are two sort of competitions taking place in each festival. You know, there is the coronation, which is the ideas that everyone has seen and know and have impacted society, and they just go there to kind of sweep the festival and get, you know, the coronation. And there are the other ones that are surprises or not everyone has seen, and it's, I think the second category is where most of the students are. You won't get, it's very rare, the opportunity to work on the big ones, you know. Uncensored is an exception for that, except this was a job like many other briefs that we had at DDB that were thrown at the interns, the Miami Med School interns. And there were jobs that we call them opportunities. They're always there. There are, you know, I always say, like, you need to know your client's problems better than their own, you know, better than the clients themselves. So you anticipate problems that they have and you bring solutions that, and then everyone wins, you know. But this is an exception, I think. When you're an intern or a junior, you get to work on you know, jobs that are not so shiny, and I think you just need to be super plugged to find the chances to do, you know, greatness, as I was saying, like I did with the print ad for Volkswagen. Suddenly became a larger campaign. It's not a campaign that we got a lot of awards, but it's something that it kind of opened doors inside the agency, you know. Like there's one thing I believe: when you have one small good idea, people will notice and they will open the doors for you. Sometimes the thing is, like, there's so many awards nowadays that if you win like 2 lines, maybe people don't even notice, you know.
Oh, wow.
15 years ago, when I won, I don't know, my first line, I was someone because everyone knew who won what. And it was basically like a print or a film competition. Mm-hmm. It helped me a bit, but if I won the same number of lines today, it wouldn't. You know, it changed. Like this whole game has changed for better or for worse. But I go back to the sacred word of mine, which is consistency. You can win a bronze lion, or you can win like a bronze or merit at one show. But if the idea is really good, sometimes it got kicked out because the jury was in a bad mood, whatever, but someone will see it and will open the doors for you, you know. So don't.
Yeah, and I think something you mentioned earlier in the interview makes me think of this, that you were saying, you know, it's work, that there's really strength in numbers, and like focusing on the work, focusing on putting good work out there, and then eventually I think and I hope that something will land, you know.
It is a truth. I'll tell you a story I've seen unfolding in front of my eyes. at Almap, there was a very big pressure to win Lions, like many agencies do, but there was humongous. And I saw someone super young winning a silver, someone that was like in the corner of the agency, along with many people that were still starting. And it just got to his head. And I think it just spoiled his whole career, because the way he behaved towards winning that award, and it was something so big and out of the proportion. I never heard of this guy again, but he was like, yeah. And people who maybe got a short list that year kept on working and then did a great campaign and never got awarded, but everyone saw and they were like, oh, fuck, that was an injustice. But look, that kid has done something last year and the other year, and there is a consistent body of work. Mm-hmm. You shall prevail, and if you also, I think awards on the other side, they're good because they show the best of what's being done, and they are currency. If you win big time, you can use that currency. It happened to me once. I got a LinkedIn message from a guy say, look, I won 5 lines with this idea. Let's have a chat. And I'm like, no. And then I waited and I came back to his portfolio 3 years later. And that was like a lonely soldier in his portfolio. The rest was just shit, So it's awards. They're like it's like this Ferris wheel. If you don't win the next year, you can have another chance. If you don't, unless you're like young lions, you have until 27, 28 to win. But then you keep on. And it's, don't get desperate. Just try to do consistent work that you love. And at some point, my last word on awards, if you are desperately trying to win awards to impress someone that will hire you just for the awards, you're probably working for the wrong person too. You can go to Dubai and just work in an agency that will do awards. But how long can you do that for? It's just like a super weird vein of advertising.
Right. Great.
Yeah.
So we're in our last question already. This time flew by. So if you have any last parting advice for people who are here, who are starting out and who are looking to start their creative journeys or continue their creative journeys in Berlin, do you have any last pieces of advice?
I think, as I said, trying to remember this quote about advertising. But, okay, it was in the titanium of life, advertising is print. I don't know if that is clear, but for me, moving from Brazil to Germany, and then again from Brazil to Germany, I was looking for something that would fulfill me more as a human being, that I could bring this to work. Everyone has their clock. It takes in a different speed. It takes in a different, your compass will point you towards maybe Germany or towards, Spain or towards America. But I mentioned my personal story because that was my mantra. But you need to have your own mantra too when you go, because there will be fallbacks. It's not easy to find a job, and you need to be constantly remind yourself why you're doing that, and then you will succeed. You bring kind of like this Latin thing with you that I will survive, I will prevail, I will get to do what I want. And sometimes it's not just about the work. Like when you are outside of your comfort zone, you're outside of your country, you will be a sponge to a culture. And that is fucking priceless. Awards will come and go. No one remembers what you won. No one knows, besides maybe the people you work with or your best friend. No one knows how many awards you have. And no one will know. And maybe you change a profession too. Maybe say, fuck, advertising sucks. I had an idea here that won't sell to my client, but I'll start a startup with it and I'll become rich. And, the things that you've learned in that experience you'll carry for the rest of your life. So also know that no one is dying because of advertising. You're not saving life. You're not finding the cure for cancer or at the front line of, of hospitals. My last point is, it's great to know advertising, to study, to know the rules, blah, 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 blah. But unlike me and my generation who were fighting for the best print ads and films, and then obviously we had to learn how to adapt and do titanium work and all that stuff, it's great. Your landscape of advertising today, it is, I think, the coolest profession. You have problems just like everyone else does, and you have your own problems. And suddenly you combine two pieces of technology and boom, you solve your own problem and you're solving other people's problems. You are exposed to so many technological tools and technology and overall technology that you can stick any brand on it and do something amazing. Look at the titaniums from every year and you're reminded why advertising is so cool. So
enjoy the ride a bit.
Enjoy the ride and don't try to fit yourself, as we did back in the day, into the print formula. Be yourself, look at your own problems, find insights of your own reality, where you're coming from. Don't try to fit yourself into a formula. Be your own self and work them hard and enjoy the ride.
Amazing. So Maria Jose, you raised your hand. Do you want to say something or?
Hello.
Go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Hi, Ricardo, Paula.
Hello.
Really nice to meet you. I'm from Ecuador, but I actually live in Medellin. It's really amazing here.
Where do you live? Sorry.
In Medellin, Colombia.
Medellin. Okay.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So, well, I'm the creative director of Luna Lunaris Studio. It's a design studio in Ecuador. My brother is also creative director of Ogilvy. And I have been really in touch with advertisement since I was really little. And I'm really hot-blooded Latin passionate about it. But yeah, recently, I don't know, behind the COVID and everything, I think I got like moral conflict and shaved my hair and everything. And I just wanted you to ask, like, in a kind of more personal way, how do you manage kind of like the social ethical part of working in advertisement? Because sometimes it feels to me that I'm working in an industry that encourages capitalism. And I've been working lately with great and amazing brands, like Nestle and Pull & Bear, but I don't know, something doesn't feel right. and it came like out of nowhere. Like I got really sick, I got depression, I got like, well, all of that story. So I feel like I really need to be careful, but I really wanted your advice because sometimes like I love it so much that it really gets out of my hands.
Thank you for the question.
I wish I had the right silver bullet answer to that one. I think I also go through that. I advertise cars. We all know that, cars are getting cleaner, but, I get this sort of question too. But I think the right answer is like, you need to choose the places you want to work for. What is the purpose? What kind of accounts? Like I'm working a lot for Kia and Hyundai, and they're turning greener and greener every month, So that puts me like, there's the purest way to define advertising is you find interesting ways to communicate products that make people's lives better, Yes. So you need to see what are the products that you want to work for. They are making people's lives better, Are they making people's lives better or not? Also,
but, yeah, that's like our responsibility to make them believe that, or at least my
you can
task,
choose
like
but you can choose the products you want to advertise. Do you want to advertise cigarettes, or do you want to advertise a holiday destination that will get people back into a good state of mind, let's say? And also, every agency does sort of like NGO work or campaigns that have some social responsibility, not only for their normal clients, and I believe some agencies do choose these clients based on what the leaders believe is right. So who are the leaders of the company you want to work for? Do they want to also use the structure of the agency and their own free time to help fight, for example, online censorship? Or do they want to just, explore the suffering of a little village in Thailand who never, they go there to shoot a spot and that's it. So there's a lot of hypocrisy in advertising. I think you can, with a sharp lens, see where you fit best. But do know that you live in a capitalist world, and if you work in advertising, you're part of the system. How are you swimming against the current with while still being part of it?
Mm-hmm.
I think if I can jump in also, not for professional advice, but just I think a lot of us are going through that burnout that you talked about. And a lot of us are experiencing this sort of tiredness from the pandemic and isolation, this and that. So I recommend rest. I think sometimes, right? Like sometimes just taking a break, taking a sabbatical. I know plenty of people that have taken, a month off of their work and said, listen, I need to recharge. I need to replenish my energies.
There's no other way.
Yeah. So, there's nothing wrong with also just taking some time off and reevaluating things and then coming back with a fresh perspective.
I feel that I needed to hear that.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with that. We're not, Ricardo mentioned that we're not machines, we're people, behind advertising, it's a bunch of people too. And I'm sure that if you can channel all of what you're feeling into your work, it's going to resonate with people. Because a lot of people feel the way you feel, maybe not, specifically or with it, but in their own jobs, they're going to feel something, that universality that you've described. Yeah.
Or if many people turn, when they're feeling that sort of frustration with advertising, they turn to personal projects as a way to, get it out and blah, blah, blah. But for me,
I discovered graffiti and I'm like,
that is awesome. That is awesome. But for me, the best of worlds is, as I was saying, if you can do sort of a project that also fulfills your soul while working in the agency.
Yes.
For a cause that you really believe in. That is the best of worlds.
Yes, thank you so much.
That you're making like a positive impact. Yeah.
Yeah.
Props.
And know that you're not alone. I'm sure a lot of people here feel something similar to that. So
oh my God, yes.
We're in this together, you guys. So with that, I'd like to thank everyone for being here. Thank you so much for sticking around and staying until the end. Ricardo, a very, very special thank you to you. It was a very special Nomad talk. We got philosophical, we got great tips too. So I really, really want to thank you for being here tonight. And I know it's late where you are. But yeah, I just really want to thank you and thank everyone for being here, and be sure to check back in, you guys, on our next Nomad Talk, which is in a few weeks already. Okay. So that's it. If you want to say anything else, Ricardo?
Just thank you, Paula. Gracias, obrigado. And yeah, I think it's normal we get philosophical. It's nomad. Nomad is, it is.
Exactly. So thank you so much. Good night, everyone.
Bye-bye. Cheers.